yes, I DNF books. Once in a while I feel bad about it, but for the most part, I am totally shameless. Hey Booktube, it's Kim at Middle of the Bookmarch, and today's video is about DNFing. And yes, I DNF. You see that all the time on my channel. And when I do my Saturday Bookish Week, you see me tell you when I DNF a book. I almost always, I think, tell you why. Because I, want to give my explanation as to what I thought about it. There's only been a few books. Well, that's not true. I'm usually pretty honest and transparent in my opinions. So if I absolutely hate a book, I will tell you that. And there have been a few books that I've actually completed because I hate read them. And I've told you that too. But today's video is about why do I DNF? Why? What are the reasons I have for DNFing? We did, I've done a video before about DNFing books. Do you DNF? Yes, I DNF. I will, if I remember, I'll attach that down below. And that came from a video from Scott at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot way back when, and I will put his video there too. But I wanted to talk more about that because I feel like I'm getting better at DNFing, and there's a lot of people that say they hate to put a book aside without finishing it. They can't stand it, especially if they paid money for it. And I totally get that, and I've done the same thing. I've bought books at full price, and then I end up DNFing, and I'm like, what's wrong with me? Well, there's nothing wrong with me. It doesn't matter what I paid for the book. If I hate it, I hate it. If I don't want to devote any time to it, I'm not going to devote any time to it. If I did buy it full price or it's a new release, I'll probably give it to somebody who would maybe love it. And I do that all the time. If I DNF a book that I've had forever or that I bought for 50 cents at a library sale, those are the books I typically collect and I donate them. So I think there were 2 times I threw away a book because I was so mad at it. And I don't even remember what they were. I got probably 50 pages and then I couldn't stand it. Actually, there was one I completed. I think I threw away Birdsong by Sebastian Fox. And I'll include that video down below too. So let's talk about it. Let me share with you why I DNF a book. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through kind of some recent DNFs for me. And I'll also show you, I have a couple books here that may not be so recent, but we might get to them. I'm actually looking at my Goodreads list. And I'm going to go through some of the latest. I just DNF'd Trespasses by Louise Kennedy. Why? How much of it did I read? I read about a third of the book. It was a buddy read with Britta, and she finished it, but neither one of us loved it. I DNF'd it. Britta is reading the entire Women's Prize long list, and it's on the Women's Prize long list. She tends to be more gracious than me, and because I don't know, I'm just grumpier, crabbier probably, and I just don't have the patience, and I don't care to give a book that I dislike any more time. So I DNF'd it. I don't think it's a horrible book. It wasn't for me. And, you can see my last week's Bookish Week videos to see why I DNF'd it. But basically, it was too surface level for me. The writing was okay. I just did not want to devote any more time to it. And then here's a book that I really felt bad about, because this is a book I've had on my shelf forever. It's the Luminaries by Eleanor Catton, who is the youngest Booker Prize winner. I read half of this book and I DNF'd it. I read half because I felt bad, because I really wanted to like it. It's a book that has so many glowing reviews, so many people adore this story, and I wanted to. I really wanted to, and I think that's a lot of the reason why when I do feel any amount of guilt over DNFing a book, that's why. It's because it has such great reviews. I've had so many people say the writing is excellent, that I love the story, but when I don't like it, yeah, it gets me right here. It kind of gets me. So yes, I DNF'd that one recently. Do I DNF books that other people love? Absolutely. those are some of the ones I may feel bad about. I did DNF Piranesi by Susanna Clarke and Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I don't get along with Clarke's writing. I'm not a lover of whimsical stories. I'm a realist. I love realism in novels. And so both of those books I tried and DNF'd. And yeah, what are some other ones? I DNF'd Lucy Gayheart by Willa Cather. I love Willa Cather's writing, but this one was set in the city, in Chicago. And it wasn't the same for me. And it's not that I want to put Willa Cather in a tight little box and not let her out, but this one didn't work for me. I wasn't interested in Lucy's story. I wasn't interested in her affair with an older man in Chicago in the, I don't know, 30s, 20s? I don't remember. But I just didn't like it. And I felt sorry for that, but I still have the book because I have a lot of Willa Cather books and I don't want to split up the family. I DNF'd How Y'all Doin' by Leslie Jordan, Misadventures and Mischief from a Life Well Lived. It was a celebrity memoir. I was listening to that one on audio, and I loved when he died recently, maybe a year ago, and for me, I thought he was so hilarious and such a funny comedian, and he was Beverly Leslie on Will and Grace, and I thought he was so funny, and he narrated his own audiobook, and I thought it was hilarious. However, being a celebrity memoir, name dropping everywhere, names, and everybody was wonderful, and I got bored with that. I DNF'd this book, Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney, and I'm an Alice Feeney fan. I've read three of her other books, and I really did like them, and this one didn't work for me. I DNF'd it pretty early, and I hated the writing. I hated the tone of voice. I hated the perspective. It was like I think the best word to describe the writing was passive, and I just thought it doesn't work at all. And this is basically a retelling of And Then There Were None, which there are a lot of. There's a lot of people retell that Agatha Christie mystery, and I'm like, have a better idea. Don't keep rewriting Agatha Christie. I DNF'd a nonfiction book, Yale Needs Women, How the First Group of Girls Rewrote the Rules of an Ivy League Giant by Anne Gardner Perkins, and I really wanted to like this one. This is another one I got 50% into. The idea is excellent. I don't know, it's just, there was nothing revelatory in there. It was like, well, yeah, it's pretty clear that Yale was patriarchal, sexist. I mean, this is the 50s, 60s, and they were behind the times and conservative, and it was not a surprise to me. And it was lists of names and lists of people, and it wasn't working. Let's see. I DNF'd The Books of Jacob by Olga Tokarczuk. Now, this was one I was reading it simultaneously in print on my Kindle, and I was listening to the audio, and I think that was an error on my part. One day I would like to read it. I do have it on my Kindle, which I would probably read, because this book, the hardcover is abnormally heavy, and it was really physically hard to read it. The Luminaries is the same way. It's whatever quality paper they use to print the book on is super duper heavy, and it's a very complicated book. I couldn't devote the energy to it, so that was the only reason I DNF'd it. Olga Tokarczuk is brilliant. Her writing is amazing. I really did love it. This one I was gleefully happy to DNF, The Netanyahus by Joshua Cohen. That was the Pulitzer Prize 2 years ago. Oh, I just thought it was so... I thought it was superficial, and I thought it was acting too clever for itself. I didn't think it was that funny. Yeah, I know it's satire, but I didn't think it was that great. And I was bored. It was very male-centric. I wasn't interested. Oh, was going to say I famously, but I'm not famous. No one cares. I famously DNF'd Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov. And it was a buddy read with AJ, my friend AJ from AJ Dunn Reads and Writes, and I just could not do it. I could not read a book from the point of view of a pedophile. I just could not bring myself to do it. Writing was spectacular, but I could not do it. I couldn't do it. Let's see. Oh, I DNF'd Gilead by Marilyn Robinson. This was another buddy read with Sonya from An Enthusiastic Reader, and I think I read half of it, and I couldn't stand the perspective. It was from an elderly man looking back on his life. He's very close to dying, and I didn't like him. He was a former minister. I didn't like his tone. I didn't like the way he was talking about his family. And Marilyn Robinson, I don't know. I just didn't like the writing in this one. I can see the talent. I saw the skill. I just didn't like it. Let's see. Yeah, Piranesi is on this list. I DNF'd What Happened by Hillary Rodham Clinton. I was listening to this on audio, and she narrates it. And I had also bought the book at Goodwill for like $2. And so I was going back and forth. I got about 25% in, I think. And I was listening to her narrate it, and I'm like, I've had enough of all the people she needs to thank. The first quarter of an entire book was all the people she loves, all the people she had to thank for everything, blah, blah, blah. It's like, just get on with it. What else? Should I tell you about any other ones? Oh, Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Reese. I really hated that one. I DNF'd it. I really did not like that at all. And that's kind of the takeoff on Jane Eyre and Mrs. Rochester, the woman in the attic. Yeah, I didn't know. Here's a book that I DNF'd. I read 50% of it, but I am going to reread it. It's Paradise by Toni Morrison. That one, I think it was just the wrong time to read it because, again, it's another very complicated novel, and Morrison's books are filled with symbolism, and this one is probably the most symbolic out of any of her books I've read so far. And it's exceptional, but I think I didn't have the energy for it. I really didn't. What's another one I can tell you about that might surprise you? There's a whole bunch of them. I mean, oh, here's another one. I've got a couple more. Blue Nights by Joan Didion. One of the best books I've ever read is the Year of Magical Thinking by Didion, and that one talks about her shock and grief after the death of her husband. And Blue Nights is her life after the death of her daughter. Her daughter was ill for a long time, and she wrote Blue Nights. But Blue Nights was less about her emotions over her daughter than it was talking about California and the people she knew and her life with famous friends. And I thought, this is not like really addressing what I wanted to read in a book about losing her daughter. So I DNF'd that one. I just didn't enjoy it. Here's one that I think I will go back to because I felt awful that I DNF'd it, and I read like 75% of this book. How do you DNF a book at 75%? It made me feel stupid, and I think I need to go back with a certain amount of time and sit down and really get into this book. And it is the Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I really was beating myself up over this one. I wanted to like it so much. This is the fourth book in the Hainish novels. I read the first three and really loved them, and The Left Hand of Darkness made me feel like a fool. I do want to go back to it because I am determined to conquer it. And I'm close with this one. I'm close with Copperfield, but I am determined to finish David Copperfield. Why? Because it's a classic, it's Dickens, and I'm a completist at heart, and I want to read this, and then I want to read Kingsolver's Demon Copperhead. You don't have to. I know you don't have to, but I'm determined. I'm pushing myself, and this isn't awful. I'm listening to a wonderful audio narrated by Richard Armitage, Thorin from the Hobbit movies, and I am dipping into the book once in a while, and it's not horrible. It's just long, and I'm getting bored. I have to say, I think for me, the most often, the most typical, the most times, I don't know what I'm trying to say, I DNF most often when I feel a book is boring. Or if I'm reading a 600, 700, 800 page book and I'm bored at page 200, it's that novels are not supposed to bore me when I'm 25% into them. When I believe a book is trying to be too clever and it's long, I get bored. It's not pulling me into the story. If I DNF a book and a person later tells me, oh, but it gets so good at the end, that defeats the purpose of a novel. A novel is supposed to bring you in. It's supposed to pick you up and carry you and make you sink into the story. I don't want to have to get to the last quarter of a book to see how it ends. I'm not into that. If a book is superficial, if a book is arrogant, if the book is filled with cliches, if it's filled with similes, if it's trying a weird format that doesn't work for me. I've read several books that have incredibly unique formatting and they're great. But some of them I just did not like. I just don't like that. I'm just a realist and I'm a purist, and I love a novel that goes from start to finish. It has a great story, beautiful writing. And so anytime a book doesn't hit those checks, I DNF it. So that's my story, and I'm sticking with it, and those are some examples of books that I've DNF'd. Let me know in the comments below if you do the same thing. I would love to know why you stick with a book if you don't like it. If you feel bad for the book, I would love to know why. Typically, people don't want to feel like they failed. They don't want to feel like they've given up or surrendered. I don't care. I'll do it. I'll surrender. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.